All right. Well, now it is my pleasure to introduce to you our Director of Missions from the Keystone Association, the Reverend Brad Holmes. You guys all heard him preach before, but I wasn't here that weekend.
Didn't miss much. I'm just going to put this down here. All right. Everyone doing well this morning? You're awake now, aren't you? All right. Yeah, I'm the Director of Missions for Keystone Baptist Association and have been working in this position for about a year. But I want to tell you, I have not always been strong and courageous. 5 years ago, July of 2016, I was full of fear. I was full of fear. I was living in Moscow with my family, and we were serving with the International Mission Board. And Vladimir Putin had just signed a new law saying that it was illegal for a person to share their faith. That it was illegal for you to have a Bible study or a church in your apartment or your house. And it was illegal to give out Christian literature. At that moment, I was full of fear. I didn't want to go to a Russian prison. And I was full of fear. And I was what? What do you think? I was paralyzed. I didn't do anything. I didn't go anywhere. I was just full of fear and paralyzed. And so I was this way for a couple of months. And God started to whisper into my ear, I will be with you and I will protect you. And he actually brought me to this text that we're going to read this morning. He said, be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. And, you know, hearing that from God, you would think that I'd be jumping out on the street and sharing my faith with everyone who was passing by. But I didn't. I kind of tiptoed, and I found someone to share with. And it was like, that was easy. Nothing happened. I wasn't arrested. And then I shared with someone else, and someone else. And a few months later, probably about 6-7 months later, we started a house church in our apartment. Once again, illegal. We were breaking the law every week. And so we kept doing this. We were handing out Christian literature to people that we knew, not to people just on the street, but people we knew, which is, once again, illegal. But we felt like it was worth following the Lord and breaking the law on sometimes a daily basis. But before that, I was filled with fear. And I know some of you, sometimes when someone says, hey, share with your neighbor your faith. Share with your relatives your faith about Jesus. And what happens? Are you filled with courage and strength? No, it's like, I don't know how to bridge the gap. I don't know how to share my faith. It's kind of awkward and uncomfortable, isn't it? But today we're going to read about someone else who was probably very uncomfortable, very fearful. And anyway, this morning, if you have your Bibles, we're going to be reading Joshua chapter 1, verses 1 through 9. I've titled this sermon, A Call to Courage, ministering to a land where we've never been before. Does it sometimes feel like you're living in a country that you did not grow up in? Things have changed a lot over the last few years, haven't they? And it feels like maybe it's not the same country that we grew up in. Well, let's read the text and just follow along with me as I read. After the death of Moses, the servant of the Lord said to Joshua, son of Nun, Moses' aide, Moses, my servant, is dead. Now then, you and all these people get ready to cross the Jordan River into the land I am about to give to them, to the Israelites. I will give you every place where you set your foot, as I promised Moses. Your territory will extend from the desert to Lebanon and from the great river, the Euphrates, all the Hittite country, to the great sea on the west. No one will be able to stand up against you all the days of your life. As I was with Moses, so I will be with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. Be strong and courageous, because you will lead these people to inherit the land I swore to their forefathers to give them. Be strong and very courageous. Be careful to obey all the law my servant Moses gave you. Do not turn from it to the right or to the left, that you may be successful wherever you go. Do not let this book of the law depart from your mouth. Meditate on it day and night, so that you may be careful to do everything written in it. Then you will be prosperous and successful. Have I not commanded you? Be strong and courageous. Do not be terrified. Do not be discouraged. For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. It's an incredible text, isn't it? You know, why is God telling Joshua this? In fact, he tells him 3 times, be strong and courageous. Be strong and courageous. Haven't I commanded you to be strong and courageous? In 4 verses. Why was he telling Joshua, who was probably one of the bravest men in the children of Israel, the army? He had led the Israelites in the battle with the Amalekites in Rephidim, today in Saudi Arabia. He led them. Of course, God was the one who gave them the victory. So this was like the bravest person in the army. Why was God saying, be strong and courageous over and over again? Because sometimes the victories of the past don't help us today. We need God every day. We need that encouragement. We need for him to be saying, yes, you can do this. Yes, you can share with your relatives or your neighbors or your colleagues the gospel. Just step out, and I will give you that courage and that faith to do so. You know, Joshua was facing a totally new challenge, and he needed to be reminded of the source of his strength. And we need to be reminded that too. The source of our strength is who? It's Jesus, it's God, yes. Yesterday's courage and strength and victory will not suffice for today. We need God every day, just like the manna. What happened to the manna? Every day they collected it, and then what happened by the next day? It was gone, and they had to go back again and collect it again. Every day. Just like reading God's Word. What if I read the Bible 15 years ago, but I haven't read it since? Is that doing me a lot of good? How often do we need to read God's Word? Daily. How often do you eat? Once every 15 years? No, daily. Our body needs physical nutrition. Our heart and our soul needs it every day also. What happens if you do not put God's Word in your heart every day? You get further and further away from God and his will. The Bible is God's will and plan for your life and for my life. That's why we need it every day. There is a great movie, and I hope you have seen it. If not, I want to highly recommend this movie. It's called Woodlawn. Have you seen it's about football, but it's more than football. Have y'all seen it? Anybody seen it? Woodlawn? You need to see it. It is a wonderful... I'm going to show you a couple of clips this morning. And so we're going to talk a little bit about this. So Woodlawn's true story happened in 1973. So I think most of you were alive in 73. You remember what was going on in Alabama. Some of you know it better than I do because I was 8 years old. So anyway, it's a true story of how God used courage of an evangelist to change several football teams. It was just an amazing movement of God. This happened in 1973 because of the courage and the boldness of an evangelist to go into a school and to share his faith and to share it with the players. You saw what happened. It is an amazing story, so you've got to watch this. It's an incredible movie. The coach, do you think he's a believer or unbeliever? Well, yeah, we'll see. But yeah, at that point, he's like, what just happened? My whole team just, he goes home. It's a great scene. He goes home and he says, I just let an untrained religious nut convert my whole team. And the wife said, is that good or bad? He said, I don't know. So, yeah, this is just an incredible movie of courage and boldness. You know, after we say, man, I want to share with you about Jesus, there's an awkwardness of 5 seconds, maybe 10 seconds. But then they's like, okay, that's what you want to talk about. Or some people might say that's what you want to talk about, and, no. Believe, no fear. Believe, no fear. I think he was scared to death. But no fear. Being confident. And he got the pep talk on the sideline. You can do this. Take down these giants. And he went on to play at Alabama. And so, anyway, did a great job. And I'm not sure if he played professional football, but anyway, we were talking earlier about the actor who played in this role. Incredible man. He was a junior, I believe, in college, playing college football. And he wanted to share his faith with as many people as possible. And he thought that football was going to give him that stage, that opening to sharing the gospel. And you know what God told him? Quit football. Quit football. He's like, God, this is my chance. I'm people know me and I can share. God said, quit football. He quit football. 6 months later, they hired him in the leading role in this movie. Is that not incredible? Following God does not always make sense to us at first. But God, who sees everything, it makes sense to him. We're going to read in a few minutes about Joshua and what God asked him to do. It didn't make sense, did it? This is God's giving him the plan for taking on Canaan, Jericho. He says, it didn't quite make sense to me. We're going to march around Jericho 13 times. And the last time you're going to blow some trumpets and the walls are going to just fall down. That's the plan, the battle plan. Sometimes what God says doesn't really make sense. But when we follow him and are obedient, it makes sense. I was a business major at Baylor University in Texas. I wanted to become an entrepreneur and start my own business. But I was a Christian. I wanted to share my faith through business. And God said, no, I have a different plan for your life. You're going to go overseas. And remember about the baby steps? I said, okay, first time I said 2 years. That's it. Then I come back and I want to get my life back. And then God changed my heart. I ended up staying 27 years overseas. And I would not change it at all. It's exciting when you are following God and you're in the middle of his will. And God will protect you and he will be with you. And it's an amazing time. There is no greater joy than following God and his will. Even if it sounds crazy. Just make sure it's God and not something you ate. So we can see that God tells Joshua to be strong and courageous 3 times. He says, be strong and courageous because of God's promise. Be strong and courageous because of God's power. and be strong and courageous because of God's presence. So his promise, his power, and his presence. So first of all, in verse 6, Joshua was commanded to be strong and courageous because of God's promise. Now I want to share with you, I went to Jericho a few years ago, and I want to show you a couple of pictures here. That's me. Jericho is supposedly the oldest city in the world. Does anybody know why it's called that? Well, I'm going to share with you in just a minute. So go on the next slide. Okay, there's Jericho in the background. See that mountain? On the other side of that mountain is Jerusalem. So Jerusalem is way up on top of the mountain, and Jericho's down at the bottom. So it's the lowest place on earth, 1,300 feet below sea level. This is right near the Dead Sea. And go on to the next one. So there's Jericho. Okay, go to the next one. Now, this is what the walls of Jericho were like. You can see that the bottom wall, it is 6 feet at the base, and then it is, I think it's 23 feet tall. And then you have this incline, and then another wall. It was a double-walled city. So that was the wall that he was probably fearful of. He had seen it. He had seen it. And, okay, God, that's the game plan, the battle plan. We're going to do it. And they marched around 13 times. Don't you know the soldiers at the top of that second wall were jeering at him? They were making fun of them. They're saying, what, do you think you're going to do something by marching around? And they were probably throwing fruit at him and, different things like that. Anyway, let's go to the next slide. So this is, pretend like you're that little stick figure over there to the left. Now you had to make it over the first wall. If you made it over that, you were dead meat. They just had guys who were ready with bows and arrows, ready to kill anybody who made it over that first wall. Okay, let's go to the next one. This is the only part of the wall that's left. It is a staircase, that round structure there. It is, they've dated it to about 7,000 years old. So that's why it's called this is the oldest standing structure in the world. That's why they call it the oldest city in the world. Go ahead to the next one. We'll see what, go back one. One more. Okay, so this is the tower, and it has these steps going down. That's all that's left. And they're not exactly sure what this tower was, but anyway, it's still standing. Okay, go to the next one. And then there's some facts about the tower, but go to the next one. Yeah. Go back up one. So. You go back up to the one after that. One more. Right there. That is what they think the city kind of looked like. And then you see the two walls around the whole city. So they marched around that. So, okay. All right. So first of all, Joshua's commanded to be strong and courageous because of God's promise. Because of God's promise. Because God said, I've already given you this land. So Joshua was confident that they were going to go in and that they were going to be victors. He was already confident. Remember, when was the promise first given? Remember? To who? It was given to Abraham, wasn't it? I know Otto knows that. To Abraham. He says, I will make your descendants like the sand and the stars, and I'm going to make your descendants like that, and I'm going to give you this land. And so Joshua knew that was going to happen. I don't think he knew it was going to be him doing that after Moses died. So some of the fear. But God had promised that. Secondly, in verse 7, Joshua was again commanded to be strong and very courageous. Very courageous. Being careful to what? Obey all the law of Moses. Why do you think he added the word very courageous here? Is it difficult to obey God's word all the time? Yeah. Yeah, it's difficult. First of all, you have to know it in order to do it. And that takes, it's work. You have to read it and study it. Otto and I were talking earlier. It's a joy to do it, but it takes time and it takes effort to study God's word. And he says three things about his word. He says three things. He says, first of all, the law was not to depart from his mouth. He was to talk about it, to share it, to preach it, to share it with others. First of all, to talk about it. Then he was told to meditate on it day and night. So think about it. So talk and think about it. You can even think like this way. Meditating on God's word is not just like, being in some type of trance. It's like a cow. How many stomachs does a cow have? Right now? Is it 4? There you go. And what happens with the cow when they eat? They chew the cud, don't they? They regurgitate it and stuff. I won't tell you too much about it. But anyway, they chew it on. They chew on it. And it's like reading God's word in the morning. And then like at lunchtime, man, that was interesting. I wonder. And you think about it. And you think about it. You talk about it. And you're thinking about it. And lastly, he says, to do everything written in it. To obey it. To obey it. So to talk about it, to think about it, and then to obey it. And those were the commands that were given to Joshua. This alone explains the victories he achieved in battle, and the success that marked his entire career. It's very interesting in Joshua's farewell address to the nation before he died. He urged the people to live in submission to the Scriptures, to obey God's word. Unfortunately, they didn't listen very long. Thirdly, we see that there's a call to courage addressed to Joshua based on the promise of God's presence. I'm going to be with you. I will not depart from you. Would that give you courage if God told you that? Oh, yeah. That's what God told me in Moscow 5 years ago. I will be with you. I will be with you. And so that was a great encouragement to Joshua. Be strong and courageous. God also urged him to not be discouraged or afraid. To not be discouraged or afraid. Because God was about to use him in a mighty way. How does God want to use you? How does God want to use you? Is he saying to you, be strong and courageous in sharing your faith? In standing up for what you believe in? Is God saying, be strong and courageous, raise up your children in the faith? Maybe something else. Maybe something else God is calling you to. Be strong and courageous. It was when the people of God, by faith, followed the commands of God that the walls of Jericho fell down. I want to tell you, it doesn't always make sense what God calls us to do. But he promises his word. He promises to be with us. And we have to do our part. Studying the word, meditating on it, thinking about it, talking about it. And God tells Joshua that you have to march around the city 13 times before the walls are going to fall. I wrote down in my notes here, really? Is that the battle plan? Can you imagine Joshua explaining that to the Israelites? This is it. This is what God wants to do. Are you sure you heard God right? Is that it? In 1996, I told my dad that God was calling me overseas to serve in Russia. And he said, why? said, because he's called me to do that. And he said, now tell me if I'm wrong, but aren't there lost people here in America? He said, yes. God's calling me there. I know it didn't make sense to my dad. He was a new believer at the time. And even to this day, he wondered, why did we spend all that time in Russia when there were lost people here? But that's what God called us to do at that time. I want to tell you a story to end with. There is a Russian in Moscow that I met several years ago, and he had just started a church. And Otto can understand this. He was spending about 15 hours a week preparing for his sermon. So he is pouring his life into his sermon every week. And on a couple of occasions, he would say, well, how did you like my sermon on Sunday? And some of the members would say, what was it on again? And it frustrated him. He's like, my sermons aren't making a difference in their lives. They don't even remember it. And so out of that frustration, he was thinking and praying about it, and is thinking about, well, I went to school. You know, we've all been to school. And he said, my teacher would say, here's the homework, and then she would take up the homework. But there was an occasion, the teacher would give homework, and she said, I'm not going to take it up, and I'm not going to test you on that homework. And he said, he thought to himself, he said, no, I'm not going to do that. I don't have to turn it in. I don't get a grade for it. I'm not going to do that. I'll go outside and play. And so he was thinking, he preaches to go love your neighbor every week, or something else from God's word, but he never takes up the homework. He never asks them about it the next week. He preaches, but he never takes up the homework. And so he started to saying, I'm going to preach, and I want you to do it this week, and next week I want you to come back, and I want you to get up here, come to the mic, and I want you to share a testimony about that. So the very first Sunday he did that, he preached on loving your neighbor. He said, I want you to go to your neighbor, and I want you to show them love in some way, somehow. Whether it be take them cookies or doing the mowing their yard for them, I want you to show them love in some way, somehow. And next week, I want you to come back and share. Well, what do you think happened on Sunday? It was like pulling teeth. No one wanted to come up to the mic. They had about 200 people there. And everyone's a little shy. And then a guy stood up. And he said, I helped my neighbor do something in his garage. And then another person came up and said, I took cookies to my neighbor. I said, I just wanted to tell you that we love you. And one by one, people started coming up. And then the next week, he did the same thing. He preached. He said, I want you to come back the next week, and I want you to share. And more people started coming up. What do you think happened? It went to an hour long of testimonies. And he said, Brad, we had to cut it back because our service is going to 2 hours. And so they cut it back to 30 minutes. But now, people, when they say, who has a testimony to share? I mean, there's like 50 hands that go up. And now they have to choose, like, who am I going to pick? Who wants to give their testimony? And it's a great encouragement. I want to tell you that Redland Baptist Church in New Cumberland, maybe you've heard of that church, the pastor started doing it there. And he said, Brad, it's incredible. People start coming up and they start sharing about who they've been sharing their faith with. And it's been a great encouragement. He said, a lot of them have not heard my testimony, how I came to know the Lord. And he said, I'm going to do that in a couple of weeks. I'm going to share my testimony. And he said, it's just, it's great. It's like a spark. And now it started as a spark, and now it's a fire and growing. It's incredible. And so that's what courage can do, and boldness. I love this movie. You need to go home and watch it, rent it, buy it, whatever you have to do. Watch it and see the courage and the boldness that this evangelist has. By the way, he went on to become either a congressman or a senator. And God used him in a mighty way. And so what can he do with us? You know how he got his attention? He played sports until he hurt his leg. I'm not sure if you noticed the very first thing, he's walking with a cane. But did you know that when he preached to all the players, what would have happened if he had walked out there with a cane? Talking to a bunch of athletes? They're not going to listen to him. He walked out there with a bat. He walked out there with a bat. None of them knew he had trouble walking. In fact, if you watch the movie, he gets their attention. They're all talking, and he can't get their attention. Takes the bat and hits the bleachers, and everyone's listening. It's pretty incredible. Anyway, God wants to accomplish so much through us. He is waiting for a life to say, God, I am yours. To be bold and courageous in following you, no matter what you tell me to do. No matter what. If you tell me, I'm going to do it. God needs believers who are willing to do that. Right. This week, I want you to think about this. I want you to come back next week, and if the pastor will let you give a testimony of how you were bold, how you were courageous with the gospel. Right? Let's pray. Father, we love you. We love your word. We thank you for how your word speaks to us. We thank you for Joshua and his example. We thank you that he was, although he was frightened, Father, you told him to be strong and courageous, to be strong and very courageous. And then you said, haven't I commanded you to be strong and courageous? Do not be discouraged. Father, I think you were telling all of us this morning those same words. Father, just the same situation in this movie. Father, that you used one evangelist to touch so many people, so many lives, because he was willing to be used, and you gave him that boldness and that courage. Father, may we be like them and step forward in faith and trust. Father, because we know that you promised your presence. You promised us to be faithful. Father, thank you so much for your son, Jesus. Thank you for his faithfulness in going to the cross and dying in our place. Father, may we be found faithful this week. In Jesus' name.